Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to No Neutral November, the series where I go over elements that make up Mii's sword fighters. It's a surprisingly diverse neutral. And today we are going to be talking about Mii's sword fighters projectiles. Now, these things are incredibly diverse in how they make up the character, especially their neutral. So let's go ahead and get on into it. So for our first projectile, we're going to talk about it. It is iconic with Mii's sword fighter. It is this neutral B tornado. It is able to combo, it is able to zone, but let's talk about it a little bit. So this actually does come out on frame 20, so it is a pretty slow projectile, and it has a first actionable frame, meaning I am not able to act until frame 67. So this is me pushing tornado and then holding shield. Now, because it has such a high first actionable frame, it is very punishable. But do not worry, this move has plenty to cover for that big flaw. Now, because I have hitboxes on, you're able to see that the tornado hitbox is a little bit behind what it visually says. Now, because this tornado has such a high first actionable frame, it is not a great move for zoning. However, you can use it as a mix-up in between certain projectiles or to catch your opponent off guard. Tornado is a pretty diverse combo option, letting you combo into a majority of sword fighters' moves. Pretty much any aerial will do it. You can probably even combo, you can even combo it into down air if you so please. Now, something to note about this projectile is that it does have set knockback, meaning if you're at 0, it's gonna send this way. If you're at 999, it's gonna send this way. It's the same no matter what percent you're at. But what does matter is how close you are to your opponent. So say if I'm this close, I can't true combos. So let me turn on air dodge, and you can see here that if I'm close at point blank, I can't get a combo off of tornado. But if I'm, let's say about here.
Miss.
Let's say about here.
Miss.
Let's say about here. There we go. You're able to get a combo. Now, you can stall out the early frames by jumping. And if you jump, you can get that combo hitbox a lot closer to what you would normally get. Now, because Tornado has such a high first actionable frame, there are a lot of counterplays to it. For example, if you see a sword fighter using tornado, you can run up, shield, and then dash up after, and you're in his face, and there's not much they can do about it. Another way you can counter tornado, jump over it. You can get a nice clean punish off of that. Sword fighter is a relatively slow character, and even he can get a solid punish on tornado. A strength to tornado, though, is if your opponent just doesn't know how to deal with it, they may end up just sitting back, blocking a whole lot, and not really knowing how to deal with it in general. You might try to mash moves against it, but that just doesn't work. So if your opponent doesn't know what to do against it, you could gain a little bit of tempo in the battle just by throwing one out every once in a while. So a way I like to use tornado is if you're in neutral against another projectile character, since tornado is transcendent, it can go through other projectiles. So for example, I'm going to throw a tornado out against Mega Man, and because I get hit by the one little pellet, I'm trading about 2% for a whole lot of pressure. Another important application of tornado is it hits almost every character under ledge. Because of this, you're able to force people off of ledge at a safe distance and away from harm. So overall, I would rate tornado, let's say a 4 out of 10. It's a solid projectile, but just has way too much lag to be able to throw out in neutral. But it does have its uses, especially at ledge. Alright, next we are going to be talking about Shuriken of Light. Now this projectile is pretty incredible. I would consider it sword fighter's best zoning projectile. It is frame 13, has a first actionable frame of 37. So it is very fast. It is like Young Link arrow levels of fast. This is very, very spammable, very fast, and can catch people off guard. So the way this projectile works is the further away you are, the more damage it deals. So if you're up close, 2.5 damage. But if you're far away, 8.1. So this thing can dish out a lot of damage very quickly. Now this projectile is not only great at zoning, but it is also a combo move. At certain distances, you're able to combo Shuriken of Light into dash attack, into grab, and into power thrust. So due to the nature of Shuriken of Light, there is actually no hit stun on the move at point blank. So it is really punishable and is not advised to be used point blank. This is a long range kind of button. So because Swordfighter crouches down while using Shuriken of Light, you're able to spam it against reflectors pretty safely. So the way you want to get in on Shuriken of Light is most of the time you're able to jump over it. And it is pretty difficult and it might be pretty frustrating to play against. But jumping over it is probably your best bet. However, there is counterplay for the Swordfighter. You can also dash block it to get in, and then once you're inside poking range, about here, it'll stop dealing hit stun, so you can get whatever punish you want. Now, the one big downside that I can think of Shuriken of Light is you don't have any move to safely get your opponent off of ledge. You have to commit to a down smash or a down air on ledge or something like that to get your opponent off ledge, which isn't as safe as Tornado. I would rate Shuriken of Light a 7 out of 10. This projectile is definitely the way to go if you're looking to purely zone. Finally, we're going to be talking about my favorite projectile, Chakram. Now, this projectile is something else. It is incredibly versatile. You can throw it at 2 different speeds and a ton of different angles. Now, this projectile comes out frame 18 and first actionable frame is 52, so it is quite laggy, but it does cover a lot of distance, so you got to keep that in mind. Like Shuriken of Light, this thing is very fast when used with the smash input, so it can be very effective at catching your opponent off guard. Because Chakram has so much range, you're able to easily position yourself using B reverses and wave bounces. I do like to use B reverses like this to gain better positioning in the fight and to gain a little bit of tempo in the neutral. Now, because Chakram does reach so far and its angle does send out, this move is very good for edge guarding. I'll put a clip on screen now showing just how I like to edge guard with Chakram. So something I really like about Chakram is it does about 10% depending on staling. So it is very useful for calculating damage. So say my Nair sends most characters into free fall at 10%. So I can throw a Chakram and the opponent's at about 10%. So I'm able to set up for a jab block. Speaking of jab blocks, Chakram is a really effective tool to use out of a jab block. You're able to combo just about anything you want out of slow Chakram. So continuing on with slow Chakram. Slow Chakram is an incredibly useful tool for mix-ups. So you can do, what I've been doing a lot recently is jumping back and then wave bouncing forward Chakram to whiff punish opponents that might get a little bit too antsy and neutral. And with this, you can get some really early kills. Now the downsides of Chakram. Now for some reason, when you throw out a Chakram, you are not able to throw out another Chakram until the first Chakram hits the ground. So you see visually here, this Chakram hits the ground, and I'm able to throw another Chakram. But if I try to throw a Chakram before this hits the ground, I can't throw another one. This also applies to slow Chakram. And speaking of slow Chakram, if you have a slow Chakram out already, you cannot have another Chakram in play. Stay mindful when zoning with Chakram that if you hit someone's shield, you're going to have to wait a little bit to throw another one. However, if you do hit somebody, you can throw a Chakram immediately after. I don't use Chakram too much as a zoning tool. When I use it, I'll mostly throw it up to catch people trying to jump. When most people see a projectile coming out, their immediate reaction will be to jump, and Chakram up will catch that. Otherwise, I use Chakram as a mix-up tool and a way to edgeguard. I rate Chakram a 10 out of 10. This projectile is incredible and makes Swordfighter who he is. In my opinion, no other side B is viable. And that's going to conclude No Neutral November for projectiles. If you do like what you're seeing, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and come back next week for No Neutral November on Swordfighter's Pokes. Thanks for watching.